Among ancient ruins, evil grows once more. The seed of corruption advances, spreading dread and despair. We must give chase.
What's up, guys? James Blonde here, and I've got some pretty sweet Path of Exile stuff to talk about in this video because, to be honest, I really couldn't pass up an opportunity to check in with Chris Wilson, going over what's new with Grinding Gear Games and Path of Exile with its next expansion, Ultimatum, and to my surprise, Path of Exile 2. More information on Path of Exile 2. We haven't heard much about it since it was revealed at ExileCon last year, but don't worry, I've got plenty to talk about with it, along with the new gameplay footage to show you. It's coming along pretty awesome, to say the least. In fact, let's go ahead and jump right in with Path of Exile 2 first, and then I'm going to go over what's involved with the Ultimatum expansion. So at ExileCon, they mentioned Path of Exile 2 as being a true sequel to Path of Exile, which is not at all an exaggeration. It's going to have a new 7-act campaign, an entire new gem system, new items, of course, new and massive monsters, new character classes, and all the Ascendancy classes are completely new. Plus, as you can tell from the new gameplay trailer here, amazing new next-gen graphics. Sounds like a sequel to me. I was kind of taken back by what Chris said when he mentioned that both Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2 would be playable from within the same game client, and that the campaigns actually share the same in-game. This means that whatever leagues or content that remains in the game added by success from the leagues can exist in both Path of Exile and PoE 2, just in their respective parts of the game world, of course. Not only that, but your old characters will still be playable, and any shop items you've purchased in Path of Exile will carry over to Path of Exile 2 as well. Taking a second just to think about what I just mentioned there, that the game exists together, like, that's just plain dope. So this design is set up so that new content is still being added to the original Path of Exile and at the same time being integrated into Path of Exile 2. In the media event that I was a part of, someone asked in the chat, is Path of Exile 2 something you should wait to experience after playing through Path of Exile 1 if you're a new player? Chris Wilson said, actually no. He recommended that if you're a new player to play Path of Exile 2 first, since it's a different campaign altogether, and they're focusing differently on how new players experience the game as far as intro quests and whatnot goes. It should end up being a very polished experience for new players. Speaking of, the new gameplay footage you see here is of the second act in Path of Exile 2. Now, this game is way more than just the new acts, of course. The goal for early game and into later content is for combat to feel both brutal and responsive, even at the lower levels. The team is wanting to make sure that each weapon type has a unique and different mechanic feel. The example they used where that wasn't so much the case in Path of Exile 1 was the dagger and claw weapon types. Players can't really feel the difference between those two weapon types, especially later on. That's definitely not the case in PoE 2. We've got to see the new spear weapon class, which offers players mobility with both melee and range attack options. So each spear you find in the world will offer at least one mobility skill, and like the gameplay here is showing, both an engage and disengage skill. So when you engage, it increases your melee damage for a short time, and that makes it feel so pure to be extra mobile during combat. It's rewarding. They've also done a good job at upping the animation system to match the new visuals of Path of Exile 2. Notice the changes in animations depending on how fast the character is running or moving. No more speed walking when using the Quicksilver. We actually see a proper sprint now. Here we see the skill called Whirling Slash, which leaves behind a sandstorm, which grows larger each time you use the skill. As you exit the sandstorm, it explodes, dealing damage to monsters around it, thus creating an incentive to be mobile in and out. This is especially effective when you use a disengage skill that lets you get out of the action and throw a few projectiles on your way out just for good measure. Are they dead? Yeah, they're dead. I'm not sure if I mentioned this already, but this is Act 2, so needless to say, the new skill system lets players create powerful character builds much faster and earlier in the game, but don't worry, it'll balance out in PoE 1 since that's how they plan to build the games, together. Once again, PoE 2 doesn't in any way replace PoE 1. The next awesome technical piece that we were shown in the demo was a mini-boss fight that showcases some new mechanics that are likely to keep you on your toes. You'll notice that when this boss slams the ground here, it ends up destroying parts of the ceiling, allowing light from above to shine through. It's this sort of mechanics that you'll have to take note of as you might realize that standing in the light now ensures that you're not going to have rocks crashing down on you. Another thing the team is working design-wise on in regards to skills is being able to cancel the skill early to dodge, or follow through to deal maximum damage. Another sweet new weapon type that I know I'm going to have a lot of fun with is the crossbow. These are unique in that they grant attack skills implicitly. This one is pretty standard and it has a high damage single target power shot, but then you can modify what that power shot does by equipping bolt skill gems, which change the types of bolts that are loaded into the crossbow. So here as an example, we see 3 different types of bolts, starting with the permafrost bolt, which can literally stop packs of enemies in their tracks to keep them from swarming you, essentially. And you can switch over to the damage dealing bolt, like the armor piercing bolt, or even add multiple projectiles to various bolt types, like you see here with the incendiary bolt. Other crossbow types can include more of a mortar-like projectile, which still gets modified by the different types of bolt gems you have equipped. This starts to showcase the variety that you might get with different crossbows you come across.
Incendiary bolts.
There's another animation detail worth pointing out here, but I'm going to go ahead and let Chris mention it to you.
We tried to add a lot more little details to combat in Path of Exile 2. You might notice that the monsters who die while burning have charred corpses. We really want to make sure that there's a feeling that as you leave the battlefield, there's clear evidence of what combat took place there.
So yeah, there are definitely some interesting changes coming to the game world and the map itself. In this case, the Ardura Caravan is the town hub for Act 2. The caravan actually moves depending on how the player wants to explore, given the choices they make. As you choose your destination, the caravan will travel to that area. It's a pretty cool way of giving scale to the game world. Back over to the spear weapon type for a minute. Here's a skill called Storm Spear that gives spear users some ranged abilities, like I mentioned before. As you can see, it fires a lightning projectile which splits on contact. This one here is Blazing Lance, and this is unique in that it creates a trail of fire from the ground, dealing damage over time. But if you're willing to stand in place for long enough, you can actually stack the damage by throwing a second spear that agitates the existing flames. That's a pretty cool mechanic as well. These are just some of the things discussed about Path of Exile 2 I wanted to share. I know you've probably got tons of questions, so maybe I can shine some light on a few. First of all, PoE isn't coming out this year, sadly. But, you know, it's always good cause. It took a long time for the original Path of Exile to come out of beta. We all know that. Second, most of the support things that you'd hope it would have, it should have. Any questions that we asked Chris about, is it going to have this or that? His answer was basically, yeah, that's the intent. Hopefully so. Stuff like controller support on PC, next-gen console stuff, hopefully cross-platform play, things like that. All of your characters, of course, will remain with you in Path of Exile and carry over to Path of Exile 2, and that includes weapons and, you know, the works. Chris and the team went over a ton in a short period of time, so there was a lot to soak in. But as some of you might already know, they revealed details on the Grinding Gear Twitch channel and answered questions from the community, so you might check that out if you're hungry for more. Speaking of which, I haven't even gone over the next expansion for OG Path of Exile, Ultimatum. Guess I'm gonna have to make a separate video for that one. If you want to check out that video, you can click here. Otherwise, check the links below to the live stream for even more exciting stuff around Path of Exile 2 and PoE's next expansion. But until next time, guys, that's gonna be it from me. I'm James Blonde. See you out there, gamers.